The twin suns of SCIFI-Prime blazed down on the crowded trade hub, their golden light dancing on the metal roofs and glass towers that rose around the central market square. The air was filled with voices of dozens of species bargaining in different tongues, the hum of floating drones carrying goods and the spicy metallic scent of food stalls cooking strange dishes. Daniel, an Earthling explorer, moved through the crowd with wide eyes. He had seen many markets on his travels, but nothing compared to this one. Here, merchants from across the galaxy sold everything from glowing crystals of unknown power to creatures that floated in glass orbs. Some stalls displayed weapons forged from alien alloys, while others offered star maps and ancient artifacts. But what caught his attention most was a circular stage in the center of the square. There, beings were not selling goods but showcasing individuals, warriors, mercenaries, and specialists bound by contracts. It was not slavery, not in the cruelest sense, but it was still strange. These contracts meant years of service to whoever purchased them. Daniel felt uneasy about it, but curiosity pulled him closer. A booming alien voice announced the next warrior. From the shattered clans of the Amazon tribes, we present Saraya of the Crimson Blades, veteran of 12 campaigns, unmatched in strength and sworn to honor until her debt is paid. The crowd stirred. From the shadows stepped a tall woman, her posture commanding, her presence radiating power. Saraya's bronze-toned skin glistened under the suns, and her black hair was braided tightly, falling across her armored shoulders. She wore battle gear scarred by countless fights, yet her head was held high, eyes sharp and proud. Daniel had read about the Amazon clans. They were famous across the stars, known as relentless fighters who valued honor above all. But seeing one so close was different. Her aura was intimidating, and yet he noticed something in her eyes, something beyond. The fierce exterior. They were not the eyes of a conqueror, but of someone carrying invisible chains. The auctioneer barked numbers, and alien traders shouted their bids. Some laughed, already imagining how they could use her in battles or as a guard. Saraya stood, still, her jaw tight. She did not lower her gaze, but Daniel sensed she hated every moment of this display. Daniel's heart tugged at him. He didn't know why, but he could not see her as a thing to be bought. He thought of Earth, of its history, where once people had been treated as property, and how humanity had struggled for freedom. He whispered to himself, "No one deserves this. Not her." Without fully planning it, he raised his hand. "I'll take her contract." The crowd fell silent. Heads turned toward him, some with amusement, others with disbelief. An Earthling bidding for an Amazon warrior? Most saw humans as clever, yes, but weak compared to other warrior species. The auctioneer squinted. "You, human? Do you even have the credits?" Daniel lifted his wristband, projecting his account. He had just enough, savings from years of work and trade. It was not a small price, but something inside told him this was the right choice. The auctioneer shrugged. "Very well, sold to the Earthling," the crowd murmured. Some laughed, expecting the Amazon to crush the fragile human the moment she was free. Others shook their heads, thinking it a waste of credits. Saraya stepped down from the stage, her chains of contract glowing faintly on her wrist. She approached Daniel slowly, her eyes narrowed, studying him. She was taller than him by more than a head. Her muscles coiled like springs, her very presence like a storm. "You bought me," she said, her voice deep and steady. "Why?" Daniel felt the weight of her gaze. He took a breath. "Because no one should stand on that stage like you did. You don't belong there." Her brow furrowed. She had expected arrogance or ownership or commands, but instead his words confused her. "If not as a servant, then what? Do you want a bodyguard? A weapon to wield?" Daniel shook his head. "I don't want to own you. I want you to be free." The words hit her like a blade. Freedom? It was not something easily spoken of among her people. Her clan had lost a war, and by ancient custom, survivors carried debts of service until repaid. To simply walk away was dishonor. Yet this human, this small, soft-spoken being, was offering her something she had almost forgotten existed. "You speak strange things, Earthling," Saraya replied slowly. My honor binds me to service. Until my debt is done, I cannot walk free." Daniel's eyes softened. "Then walk with me. Not as property, as a companion. You'll decide when your debt is truly paid." For a long moment, Saraya said nothing. She simply studied him. She had fought alongside commanders who barked orders, leaders who only saw her as a blade. Never had anyone spoken to her like this. Finally, she gave a small nod. "Very well, human. I will walk with you, but know this. I am no pet, no servant to fetch your meals. I am Saraya of the Crimson Blades. My loyalty is earned, not purchased." Daniel smiled faintly. "I wouldn't want it any other way." They left the square together, and the crowd whispered behind them. Many predicted the Amazon would abandon him at the first chance. Some bet she would strike him down for daring to interfere in her fate. But as Daniel walked through the glowing streets with Saraya at his side, he felt strangely certain he had made the right choice. The suns dipped lower, casting long shadows across the alien city. Daniel led her to his modest ship docked at the port, a vessel far smaller than the mighty war cruisers she was used to. She looked at it with a mix of surprise and amusement. "This is your ship?" she asked, raising a brow. Daniel chuckled. "Not impressive, I know, but it's gotten me across half the galaxy." She studied him again, silently. Something about his calmness unsettled her. Most men she met tried to prove themselves louder, stronger, more dominant. This one was different. As the ship's ramp lowered, Daniel gestured for her to enter first. She hesitated only a moment before stepping inside. The cabin was simple, clean, filled with small touches of Earth, photographs of oceans, forests, and stars. She paused at one picture, a blue and green planet floating in the void. "Your world," she said quietly. Daniel nodded. "Home." For a brief moment, something softened in her gaze. She wondered what it must be like to have a home still intact, unbroken by war. That night, as the ship prepared for departure, Saraya sat in silence, her sharp eyes watching the human move about his controls. She expected weakness, hesitation, but saw none. His hands moved with steady precision, his voice calm as he spoke to the ship's AI. Finally, she asked, "Why risk your credits on me, Daniel of Earth? You could have bought many things. Weapons, maps, even ships." Daniel glanced at her. "Because I saw someone who deserved better." Her jaw tightened. No one had ever said such words to her. For the first time in many years, Saraya felt something stir within her chest. Not anger, not defiance, but a quiet, fragile hope. She turned away, hiding it beneath her pride. "We shall see, human. We shall see what fate you have led us into." The stars stretched endlessly outside the ship's window, millions of glowing dots scattered across the black canvas of space. Inside the small cabin, the steady hum of the engines filled the silence. Daniel sat at the pilot's seat, adjusting the controls with calm focus. Beside him, Saraya sat with her arms crossed, her tall frame almost too large for the co-pilot's chair. Her sharp eyes scanned every screen and button, memorizing each detail. To her, this ship was small, unimpressive compared to the war vessels of her people. Yet it surprised her how smoothly it traveled, how carefully Daniel maintained every system. For hours she said nothing, only watching him. Finally, her voice broke the silence. "Human," she said firmly. "Tell me why you walk the stars alone." Daniel smiled faintly without looking up. "Because I want to see them all. Every world, every people. Earth is beautiful, but I don't want to spend my life in one place." Her brow furrowed. "Most who leave their homes carry banners, armies, or missions. You carry none, only curiosity." "That's enough for me," Daniel replied simply. Saraya leaned back, studying him. His words made no sense to her warrior mind. To fight without purpose was dishonor. To travel without duty was wasteful. Yet he spoke with a confidence she could not easily dismiss. The ship landed 2 days later on a frontier colony world. The Midi settlement was small, Rows of prefabricated houses, solar panels, and wide fields stretching under a pale green sky. Children ran barefoot through the dirt paths and settlers waved at Daniel's ship as it touched down. "Friends of yours?" Soraya asked, surprised at the warm welcome. Daniel laughed. "Not really, but humans like to help each other out. These colonies are far from safe. Raiders often strike them." The word raiders made Soraya's hand instinctively reach for her blade. Her instincts sharpened, and her warrior pride stirred. "If raiders come, then we fight. I will show you why Amazons are feared." Daniel shook his head. "Fighting isn't always the answer. Sometimes defense is about preparation, outsmarting them before they arrive." She narrowed her eyes. "Spoken like one who fears combat." He met her gaze calmly. "Spoken like one who knows that survival is more important than glory." His words stung her pride, but she stayed silent, choosing instead to follow him through the settlement. The settlers greeted Daniel warmly. Many were human, but a few were alien families who had chosen to live among them. They brought food, water, and tools, eager to show him their progress since his last visit. Soraya watched carefully. These people were not warriors. Their hands were rough from farming, not fighting. Their bodies were thin from hard work, not training. To her they looked weak, yet their eyes shone with determination. A little girl ran up to Soraya, staring up at her tall, armored form. "Are you a hero?" the child asked innocently. Soraya blinked, caught off guard. She had been called many things in her life: warrior, fighter, mercenary, but never hero. She did not know how to answer. Before she could speak, Daniel knelt beside the girl. "She's more than that," he said softly. "She's a protector." The child's eyes widened in wonder, and then she skipped away happily. Soraya stood frozen, her heart unsettled. Protector. The word felt heavier than any title she had carried. That night, Daniel and Soraya sat with the settlers around a fire. The settlers spoke of their fears. Raiders had been spotted nearby, and they expected an attack soon. Soraya's warrior spirit surged. She stood tall. "Then arm yourselves. Stand and fight. Raiders understand only blood and steel." The settlers exchanged uneasy looks. One elder spoke. "We have no weapons strong enough and no training. If we fight, we lose everything." Soraya scowled. "Then you will fall like prey. Better to die with honor than to bow." Daniel raised his hand. Calmly. "No, better to live. We can prepare traps, signals, safe houses. We'll make it costly for the raiders, not with brute strength but with cleverness." Soraya turned to him sharply. "You speak of hiding, of running." Daniel looked back steadily. "I speak of surviving. These people aren't soldiers. They're farmers, builders, children. They don't need honor in death. They need life." Her pride bristled. To her people, such words were weakness. Yet she also saw how the settlers' eyes lit with hope at Daniel's plan. They trusted him. The next 2 days were spent preparing. Daniel worked with the settlers, showing them how to build simple alarms using scrap metal and wires, how to dig trenches and set decoys. He used every bit of knowledge he had gathered from his travels. Soraya at first dismissed his efforts. She preferred sharpening her blade, readying her armor. But as she watched, she began to see something strange. These settlers, once fearful, now stood taller. They moved with purpose. Their hands worked together, their voices carried courage. At night, Soraya sat apart, thinking. She had fought countless battles, spilled blood for commanders who cared, only for victory. Yet here, this one human was creating strength without bloodshed. It confused her. It unsettled her. On the third night, the raiders came. Screams echoed as dark ships descended, kicking up dust and fire. Armed figures poured out, shouting threats, weapons raised. Soraya leapt to her feet, blade flashing in the firelight. Her heart raced with the thrill of battle. Finally, a chance to prove herself. But Daniel's voice rang out. "Wait! Remember the plan!" The alarms triggered, loud metallic clangs echoing through the fields. Traps snapped shut, catching raiders off guard. Decoy fires tricked others into chasing shadows. From hidden shelters, settlers threw rocks and tools, confusing their attackers. Soraya roared into the fight, cutting through two raiders with swift, brutal strikes. Yet as she fought, she noticed Daniel, moving not with strength, but with quick thinking. He shouted orders, redirected settlers, and used the environment to outsmart their enemies. By the time dawn broke, the raiders had fled, their pride shattered. Not a single settler had died. The colony stood, scarred but unbroken. After the battle, Soraya stood outside the village, her blade dripping. She looked at Daniel, who was helping a child to their feet. Pride burned in her chest, but so did something else, confusion. She approached him. You fight with no blade, no strength, yet they listen to you. They won because of you. Daniel smiled faintly. No. They won because they believed they could. All I did was remind them. Soraya shook, her head slowly. Among my people, strength commands respect. But you lead with something else. Something I do not understand. Daniel met her gaze. Maybe one day you will. For a long moment, Soraya said nothing. Her pride battled with the truth she had witnessed. Humans were not the strongest, species not the fiercest. Yet this Earthling had accomplished what warriors often failed to do. He had protected life without seeking glory. That night, as the settlers celebrated their survival, Soraya sat quietly by the fire. She had fought beside humans now, and what she saw unsettled her. Perhaps strength was not only in muscle or steel. Perhaps it also lived in compassion, in courage, in cleverness. And though she would not admit it out loud, deep within, Soraya felt the first spark of respect for the human who had bought her contract, not as a weapon but as a companion. The days after the raid brought peace to the settlement. The settlers repaired their broken roofs, replanted damaged crops, and cleaned the black marks left by fire. Children laughed again, running through the dusty paths, no longer hiding in fear. Soraya stood on a small hill overlooking the colony, her blade resting on the ground beside her. She had fought bravely, yet she knew the victory was not hers alone. Daniel's clever plans had saved these people, and that truth gnawed at her pride. She had grown up believing strength was the only path to survival, but here, on this frontier world, she had seen another way. Daniel walked up the hill carrying 2 mugs of steaming drink. He handed one to her. You've been standing out here for hours. Thought you could use something warm. She accepted, it silently, though her pride resisted. The drink was bitter but soothing. For a while they stood in silence watching the settlers work together. Finally, Soraya spoke. You fight with no honor, Daniel of Earth. You hide, you trick, you set traps. My people would call this cowardice. Daniel chuckled softly. Maybe. But it worked. Her eyes narrowed. And yet, they cheer you. They call you leader. They look at me as warrior, but they look at you as hope. I do not understand. Daniel sipped his drink, gazing at the fields. Your people fight for honor. These people fight for life. To them, survival itself is victory. Soraya turned, his words over in her mind. To survive without honor was shame among her people. But these settlers carried no shame in living another day. Could it be that her clan's way was not the only path? That night, the settlers gathered in the main hall to thank Daniel and Soraya. They offered food and gifts, small tokens of their gratitude. Children ran up to Soraya, touching her armored arms, calling her protector. She felt a strange warmth in her chest. Among her people, she was feared. Here, she was admired. Daniel sat beside her at the long table, smiling at the joy around them. You see? They don't need warriors to bow to. They need people who believe in them. Soraya frowned, though she did not argue. She was beginning to see his truth, though pride kept her silent. Later, when the settlers slept, Daniel and Soraya returned to the ship. As they prepared to leave, Soraya spoke quietly. These people see you as more than human. They see you as a guide. Why leave them? Why not stay and lead? Daniel shook his head. Because my journey isn't here. I can't stay in one place, Soraya. I want to see more, learn more, and maybe, in some small way, help others along the way. His words confused her again. To leave honor, power, and respect behind was unthinkable. Yet he walked away freely, content with only his path. Their travels took them to new worlds. On one, vast forests covered the land, with rivers like silver cutting through green valleys. On another, red deserts stretched endlessly, storms raging across the dunes. Each world taught Soraya something new. She saw how humans traded not with weapons but with words. She saw how Daniel listened more than he spoke, and how often his patience brought solutions strength could not. But not every encounter was peaceful. On the planet of Varan, they entered a great city of steel towers and neon lights. Merchants filled the streets, guards patrolled in shining armor, and at the city's heart stood the Hall of Warlords. Soraya's clan had once fought here. She knew the traditions of this place. Strength was law, and weakness was punished. When Daniel and Soraya entered the hall, the warlords looked down from their thrones, studying them. One, a tall figure with horns curling from his skull, sneered. An Earthling dares stand here beside an Amazon? Curious. Tell us, human, what strength do you bring? Soraya bristled, ready to defend him, but Daniel spoke calmly. Strength comes in many forms. Some wield blades, some wield knowledge. I carry the strength to unite. The hall erupted, in laughter. The horned warlord leaned forward. Unite? Words are wind. Show us your strength or leave in shame. Soraya gripped her blade, her blood burning with fury. Among her people, to laugh at one's companion was insult beyond measure. She wanted to strike to silence their mockery, but Daniel raised his hand gently. Not here, he whispered to her. His calmness stunned her. To her, insult demanded response. But Daniel did not fight. He stood tall, letting their laughter wash over him like rain. Afterward, as they walked, the streets, Soraya finally snapped. Why did you not fight? You allowed them to dishonor you. Daniel looked at her quietly. Because fighting them would prove nothing. They live by pride, I don't. If I had drawn a blade, maybe I would have won, maybe not. But either way, it wouldn't change their hearts. Sometimes the greater strength is walking away. Soraya clenched her fists. His words cut against everything she believed. But she also remembered the settlers, remembered how Daniel had led them without violence. Could he be right again? Later that night, as they prepared to leave Varan, Soraya sat in silence. Her thoughts wrestled within her. She remembered her clan's teachings, strength, pride, honor. Yet she also remembered Daniel's ways, compassion, patience, cunning. Both paths had truth, yet they clashed like fire and water. Daniel approached her, placing a hand on the railing beside her. I know this isn't easy for you. I'm not asking you to abandon who you are. I'm asking you to see that there's more than one way to live. She looked at him, her sharp eyes softening for the first time. And what of me, Daniel of Earth? What path do I walk now? I am bound to you until my debt is paid. Yet I do not know if I am servant, companion, or something else. Daniel met her gaze steadily. You're Soraya, not a weapon, not a servant. Just Soraya. The choice of what to be is yours. Her chest tightened. Never before had someone given her such freedom. Among her people, her path had always been decided, by clan, by commander, by honor. But this human spoke as if she could choose her own destiny. It frightened her, and yet it also filled her with hope. The next world they visited was a place of endless seas and floating cities. There, Soraya finally spoke her heart. You confuse me, human. You show me weakness and call it strength. You turn away from battle and call it victory. You release me from chains and call it freedom. My people would not understand. Daniel smiled softly. Maybe they don't need to understand. Maybe it's enough that you do. She turned away, hiding the storm of emotions within her. For the first time in her life, she wondered if her people's way was truly the only way. She wondered if, perhaps destiny was not a chain, but a choice. And deep within, Saraya felt the first stirrings of change. That night, as the twin moons rose over the ocean world, Saraya stood on the deck of the ship, staring at the stars. Her pride still burned, but now it burned alongside curiosity, alongside questions she had never dared to ask. Behind her, Daniel joined her, silent at first. Then he spoke. "The stars are endless, Saraya, and so are the paths we can take. You don't have to walk the one given to you. You can make your own." She looked at him, truly looked, and for the first time in her life, she felt not like a warrior bound by duty, but like a soul standing at the edge of possibility. And though she did not say it aloud, Saraya knew her destiny was beginning to change. The ocean world faded into memory as Daniel's ship lifted back into the stars. The hum of the engines filled the silence, but Saraya's mind was far from still. She stood by the window, arms crossed, her sharp eyes watching the endless black, dotted with light. She had seen many battles, had followed many commanders, and had obeyed her clan's code all her life. Yet in the company of this Earthling, she felt something different stirring inside her, a question she had never dared to ask. What if my life does not belong to my clan? What if it belongs to me? But she did not speak of this aloud, to voice. Such doubt was betrayal in her people's eyes. Daniel, sitting at the pilot's seat, noticed her silence. "You've been quiet," he said softly. She turned toward him, her face calm but her voice heavy. "A warrior thinks before battle. My thoughts are unsettled." He smiled faintly. "Unsettled isn't always bad. It means change is happening." She gave a sharp laugh. "Among Amazons, change is weakness. We are bound to tradition, to the oath of the clan. Honor is carved in stone." Daniel leaned back, folding his arms. "Then maybe it's time to carve new stone." Her eyes narrowed. "You speak boldly, human. You do not understand what you say." But deep inside, his words struck a place she could not ignore. Days later, the ship received a message. The screen lit up with the symbol of the Crimson Blades. "Saraya's clan," a voice followed, deep and commanding. "Saraya of the Crimson Blades, word of your survival has reached us. Your contract has been bought by an Earthling. Return at once. The Council demands your presence. You belong to us until your debt is fulfilled." Saraya stiffened. The voice of her people still carried power over her. Even across the stars, the weight of duty pressed down on her shoulders. Daniel glanced at her. "What will you do?" She said nothing for a long time. Finally, her voice came low. "I must go. To refuse is dishonor." The journey back to her clan's world was heavy with silence. Saraya spent her nights sharpening her blade, her days staring at the stars. Daniel did not press her, though concern lingered in his eyes. At last their ship descended upon the Amazon homeworld. Vast mountains rose from the ground, their peaks wrapped in clouds. Great stone fortresses stood like giants across the valleys. The air was sharp, filled with the cries of warriors training in the courtyards below. As Saraya stepped onto the soil of her home, old memories rushed over her. The sound of marching boots, the clash of steel, the cries of victory and defeat. She walked tall, her armor gleaming, but her heart carried a storm. The council hall loomed before them, a circle of towering pillars carved with the history of battles. Inside, the elders of the Crimson Blades sat upon stone thrones, their eyes fierce and unyielding. One elder spoke, his voice echoing, "Saraya, you were lost, yet now you return. Why do you stand beside this human?" Saraya bowed her head slightly. "Because he freed me from chains." Murmurs rippled through the hall. Another elder leaned forward. "No Amazon walks free until her debt is paid. You belong to the Crimson Blades until honor is restored." Daniel stepped forward, his voice steady though the hall's pressure weighed heavily on him. "With respect, she belongs to no one. She has the right to choose her own path." The hall erupted in anger. To the Amazons, such words were an insult. One elder slammed his fist against the stone. "Human, you know nothing of our ways. You dare speak of choice? She is bound by blood and oath." Saraya raised her hand, silencing them. Her voice rang out strong. "I have fought in your wars. I have bled for your banners. I have carried the shame of defeat upon my shoulders. But I ask you, what honor lies in endless chains? What pride is there in living as a weapon, not as a soul?" The hall fell silent. Never before had she spoken against tradition so openly. The elders' faces darkened with disapproval, but in some of the younger warriors' eyes, Saraya saw sparks of curiosity. One elder hissed, "You have been poisoned by this Earthling's weakness." Saraya turned to Daniel. His calm presence, his steady eyes gave her strength. She lifted her chin. "If it is weakness to see beyond chains, then I embrace it. If it is weakness to fight for my own path, then I accept it. I am Saraya, not your servant, not your debt. I choose my own destiny." Her voice rang across the chamber like thunder. The elders rose in outrage. "Blasphemy! Betrayal!" But before they could command her arrest, Saraya stepped back, her blade flashing in the firelight. "If you would chain me again, then fight me. But know this, I no longer fight for your honor. I fight for mine." The hall shook with tension. Warriors drew their blades, but the elders raised their hands. No battle came. Instead, the eldest of them all, his voice heavy with age, spoke slowly. "Then go, Saraya. If you choose the humans' path, then you are no longer of the Crimson Blades. You are exile, you are forgotten." The words cut deep. To be exile was worse than death among her people. Yet Saraya did not tremble. She held her head high. "I accept exile," she said firmly. "Better to walk free in the stars than chained in the halls of stone." The elders turned away, dismissing her with cold silence. Outside the hall, Saraya's steps were heavy. The weight of exile pressed upon her heart, but beside her, Daniel walked calmly. "You did something incredible," he said quietly. She shook her head. "I did something shameful in their eyes. I am no longer Amazon. I am nothing." Daniel stopped, turning her to face him. "You're not nothing. You're Saraya, the one who chose freedom when no one else dared. That doesn't make you nothing. That makes you more than you've ever been." Her chest ached at his words. For the first time, she felt the chains of tradition fall away. It hurt, but it was also freeing. That night, they left the Amazon world behind. As the ship rose into the stars, Saraya stood at the window, her eyes burning. Daniel joined her. "Regrets?" he asked softly. She shook her head slowly. "Only pain, but not regret." She looked at him, her voice firm. "I have chosen. My destiny is mine now, and I will walk it beside you." Daniel smiled faintly. "Then we'll walk it together." Their journey continued. On new worlds, Saraya no longer introduced herself as Saraya of the Crimson Blades. She was simply Saraya. She fought when needed, protected when called, but she no longer carried the burden of her clan's shadow. The galaxy began to whisper of her, a warrior Amazon who had left her people to walk beside a human. Some mocked, some admired, but all remembered her name, and within her, Saraya felt something she had never known before. Not just pride, not just honor, but true freedom. Her destiny had been rewritten, not by her clan, not by tradition, but by her own hand. And beside her, Daniel knew that humanity's strength was not in weapons or power, but in the ability to inspire change, even in the heart of a proud Amazon warrior. The stars stretched endlessly outside the ship's viewport, a galaxy of possibilities waiting to be explored. Saraya stood on the deck, her posture tall, her blade sheathed but ever present. Beside her, Daniel checked the navigation systems, calm and confident as always. For the first time, Saraya felt truly unbound. Her clan, her past, her duties, all were behind her. Ahead lay the unknown, and for the first time she felt excitement instead of fear. Freedom was a strange but exhilarating companion. "Where to next?" she asked, her voice steady, though her eyes sparkled with curiosity. Daniel smiled. "Wherever we're needed. Some colonies could use help. Some worlds have mysteries waiting to be solved. And some may simply need someone to remind them what hope feels like." Soraya considered this. On her people's world, strength meant control and survival. Here, strength meant something different. Here it meant protection, guidance, and courage to make choices. She had learned much, but she knew the journey was only beginning. Their first stop was a small mining colony on a rocky moon. The settlers were under threat from rogue mercenaries who demanded resources without payment. Daniel and Soraya arrived as the colony's defenders were overwhelmed. Soraya leapt into action, her blade cutting through the air with speed and precision. But she noticed something different. She was not fighting for honor or revenge. She fought to protect life. Each strike, each movement carried purpose beyond her personal pride. Daniel moved beside her, coordinating defenses, setting clever traps, and inspiring settlers to take action. They worked as a team, Daniel's mind guiding the battle, Soraya's skill ensuring its success. By the end of the day, the mercenaries were gone, the colony safe. The settlers cheered, not for the bloodshed, but for the protection and guidance they had received. Soraya felt a deep warmth in her chest, a satisfaction unlike any victory she had known before. "Daniel," she said quietly as they watched the sunset over the jagged mountains. This is different from what I expected. I thought I would miss the battle, the glory. But I feel more fulfilled helping these people than I ever did fighting for my clan." He glanced at her, a gentle smile on his face. Because true strength isn't just about fighting. It's about making life better for those who cannot defend themselves. "You are learning quickly, Soraya." She looked down, a small smile forming. For the first time, she accepted that her path was her own. Word of their deeds spread across the galaxy. Humans and Amazons alike began to hear stories of the Earthling and the Amazon warrior who traveled together, protecting colonies, settling disputes, and teaching cooperation between species. On one world, a council of mixed species leaders invited them to mediate a conflict between two rival settlements. Soraya, still wary of political games, approached cautiously, but Daniel reassured her. "Listen first," he said. "Understanding is stronger than blades." Soraya followed his advice. They spent days talking to both sides, learning fears, hopes, and histories. Using strategy rather than violence, they guided the settlements to an agreement that left both sides stronger and united. For Soraya, it was a revelation. Strength was not only physical, it was patience, listening, and the courage to guide others without asserting dominance. "Your people would call this weakness," she said one evening, watching the twin suns set over the hills. Daniel laughed softly. "Maybe. Or maybe they just never understood another kind of strength." Soraya looked at him, realizing that humans, though not the strongest by nature, could shape destiny through intelligence, compassion, and courage. Months passed, and their journey continued. They discovered hidden civilizations, helped worlds recover from disasters, and even prevented conflicts before they erupted. Everywhere they went, Soraya's reputation grew, not as a mercenary, not as a weapon, but as a protector, a leader, and a symbol of hope. One day, a message arrived from the younger warriors of the Crimson Blades. They had heard of Soraya's deeds and sent a ship to meet her. "Soraya," the young leader said when they met, "we have seen your actions. You left your clan, your traditions, yet you are stronger than we could have imagined. How did you learn such power?" Soraya looked at them, her eyes calm but filled with intensity. "I learned that strength is not only in steel or blood, it is in protecting life, inspiring courage, and choosing your own path. Do not let tradition bind your soul. Learn, adapt, and grow stronger through choice, not fear." The young Amazons bowed deeply. They had learned more from her than any training could have taught. And in that moment, Soraya realized that she had begun to change not only herself, but her people. as well. Daniel and Soraya continued through uncharted space, their bond unshakable. They shared quiet moments on the ship, watching stars, talking of Earth, of Amazon traditions, and of the future. Soraya spoke freely now, sometimes laughing at Daniel's stubborn optimism, sometimes listening in awe to his knowledge of distant worlds. "Do you ever miss your old life?" Daniel asked one evening. Soraya thought for a long moment. "Sometimes. I miss my clan, the certainty of rules, the pride of battles. But I no longer miss chains. I no longer miss being controlled. My destiny is my own. And beside you, I am stronger than I have ever been." Daniel smiled and reached for her hand. "And you've shown me that strength is not just human either. Together we make something better than either of us alone." Years passed, and the tales of their adventures became legends. They inspired humans, Amazons, and countless other species to reconsider what it meant to be strong. Colonies thrived under the guidance of their lessons. People learned that courage could be gentle, that leadership did not require fear, and that the combination of skill, intelligence, and compassion could change worlds. Soraya, once a warrior bound by honor and debt, now stood as a bridge between species. She trained young Amazons and humans alike, teaching not only combat but empathy, strategy, and wisdom. She had become more than a fighter. She had become a teacher, a leader, and a symbol of unity. One day, standing on a cliff overlooking a valley, where humans and Amazons worked side by side, Soraya whispered to Daniel, "We've changed more than we could have imagined." He put a hand on her shoulder. "Yes, and there's still so much more to do." She nodded, feeling the wind against her face. She thought of her past, of chains and contracts, of battles fought and honor lost. None of it mattered now. She was free. Her destiny had been rewritten, and it was brighter than she had ever dreamed. As the twin suns rose on the horizon, Daniel and Soraya looked at the world below, then at the stars above. Together they had proven that strength was not only measured in power, but in courage, choice, and compassion. Together, they had begun a new legend. And somewhere in the vastness of space, the galaxy remembered. The Earthling and the Amazon warrior, who walked together, changed the fate of many, and inspired generations to come.